All right, I'm standing right now in what will soon formally be known as Black Lives Matter Plaza. Behind me, you can see and hear the noise of a jackhammer. They are busting up the pavement, which on June 5th, 2020, just days after George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, basically overnight, this stretch of 2 blocks just north of the White House. I mean, we are right by the White House. You can actually probably see that behind me too. It became Black Lives Matter Plaza. The asphalt was painted over in bright yellow block letters, and basically for that entire summer, it became a rolling protest zone. Now, what actually happened here is not the Trump administration saying we're taking over DC government, although they may start doing something like that. What happened is they threatened federal funding for the District of Columbia. Republicans in the House introduced a bill not long ago saying they will take away federal funding if BLM Plaza is not removed. They want it to be called Liberty Plaza. And so the Democratic mayor here in DC, Muriel Bowser, actually just decided on her own to say, well, we're not risking federal funding. We're going to bust it up. It's a process that's going to take about 6 to 8 weeks. About the next 6 to 8 weeks. We are 2 days into the process right now. There are gawkers sort of watching the whole process unfold. It's going to cost, according to reports, about $600,000. That's interesting because we actually had one man come up to us as we were setting the camera up, complaining about the cost and the noise. So when it was originally installed, there's already been about $5 million spent here. They were planning to spend even more, making this into a park. So in 2020, it's transformed overnight. And then in 2021, Mayor Bowser says that it's going to be a permanent installation. And I just want to emphasize how wild it is that in 2021, the mayor was boasting about how this year-long art display was being turned into something permanent. And now here in early 2025, that mayor herself is dismantling it. It is an extraordinary turn of events. And I want to play this clip of Charlie Kirk, obviously somebody who's very close to Donald Trump, who was out here yesterday reacting to what he saw as the plaza was dismantled.
Hey everybody, live from Black Lives Matter Plaza. Well, it's not called that anymore. As you can see, the working crews are out, and it is the end of this mass race hysteria happening in our country. This right here, by the way, that was the church they tried to burn down, if you remember. The crews are out here removing this 2-block-long mural of Black Lives Matter Plaza out here in the streets of Washington, D.C. It is quite the effort. They have to actually get down to the street itself to get rid of all of the nonsense here. Make America great again, getting rid of BLM Plaza.
Okay, I also want to take a look, just on a personal note. I can speak to some of my own reporting in the summer of 2020 because I lived just up the road at that time and was coming down here constantly to check in on the protests. They never ended. At one point, there was basically an autonomous zone set up outside of Lafayette Park. If you've ever visited DC and the White House, Lafayette Park is what separates BLM Plaza, perhaps soon to be Liberty Plaza, from the White House. And there was a rolling series of protests. There was an encampment that became an autonomous zone. It was a fascinating summer. And I saw at one point, I took a picture, in fact, because I watched this white woman in Lululemon leggings berating a black female cop in her face. I mean, right in front of her, just on a normal summer afternoon, calling her a racist. And that was 2020 in a nutshell, as far as I'm concerned. And one of the days, I just want to roll some clips of what I saw over here in 2020. See a lot of the same people here today that I saw last night. They have been pushed up a block from their encampment in St. John's Church, which has been vandalized. It was set on fire a few weeks ago. I saw them set a fire outside St. John's Church in the middle of 8th Street just last night. Some protesters were quick to put it out, not wanting to antagonize the police. There's kind of a disagreement among the protesters. Some don't know or some are trying to control the more aggressive members of their ranks.
You're a disgrace. I'm right here. I haven't moved. Disgrace. Quit deflecting.
He can do that.
Disgrace.
He can do that.
Disgrace.
Back your ass up.
Right here. There's no fucking riot here. Right here. There's no fucking riot here. Right here.
So again, all of this was shortly after the killing of George Floyd up in Minneapolis, and DC became one of the hubs for these nationwide protests. And it was obviously a landmark year. We will always look back on that year in the course of American history. COVID, people were out here protesting with and without masks on when there were all kinds of rules about how you were allowed to be in close quarters. People were really close together at peaceful protests outside here, and then Antifa protests would happen in the night. And some people would be wearing masks, some people wouldn't be wearing masks, but that is also part of what really threw gasoline on the fire of the 2020 culture war, was seeing so many people in places like this come out and violate protest rules or be outside wearing masks when they're in the outdoors. So it was a real hub for the culture war in 2020. And I just, before we wrap here, want to emphasize again how extraordinary it is that you go from having the Democratic mayor bragging about this, using it as a centerpiece of how DC was remembering the history, the stain of racism in the United States of America after the killing of George Floyd, when everybody was cooped up during COVID, and to suddenly, there's no protest. I mean, look around. There are a couple of people, as I said earlier, gawking. One man came up to us, was very upset, but there's no protest, nothing. And to utter any word of dissent against the BLM movement, when I was here in those hot summer days in 2020, it felt dangerous. And now you have literal jackhammers busting up the asphalt. And I think, honestly, the permission structure changed in early November when Donald Trump won the presidential election. Everything changed. People realized that the tiny slice of the country who was demanding things like this, and people like Muriel Bowser. I've seen some people say that this is Trump crushing Marxism. That's an interesting take to me, because Muriel Bowser is essentially your run-of-the-mill corporate Democrat who was using art, literal art, as a public relations effort to distract people from policies that she enacted. That she knew the movement wasn't supportive of, the BLM movement wasn't supportive of. This was a literal shield for Muriel Bowser and corporate Democrats to placate and to sort of avoid hostile conflicts with the very energized BLM movement at the time. This was a shield to say, we're on your side, we're working on it, give us some time. And then Muriel Bowser said, we're actually making it permanent. That's how proud we are of it. It's becoming asphalt. And the Trump administration is using federal funding. The Republican Party is now in charge of both houses of Congress and the presidency. They're using federal funding as the weapon. This is not something that's going through the Supreme Court. This is something that is already happening. This isn't caught up in the courts. This is something that is in motion, a process that's in motion. And again, just to be clear, this is the use of federal funding in a way that Republicans never were comfortable doing before, as a sort of string. They're using it as, they're allowing themselves to be sort of the puppet masters here, which is something that conservative activists and the conservative movement has wanted for a really long time. And what you see right here is the effect of that. This is cause and effect. It was successful, at least in this case. We'll see if it's successful in more cases. They're doing a similar thing to Columbia University. But this is the vibe shift, in a very sort of physical manifestation. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe wherever you download your podcast. Subscribe on YouTube and over at undercurrents.tv for full premium episodes, a weekly newsletter, and exclusive access to all kinds of fun stuff from Unheard. We'll see you back here with more Undercurrents soon.